The last shovelful of dirt fell as the sun broke the horizon. Samuel Hartwell stood at the grave's edge, hat in hand, watching shadows retreat from the raw earth. The cottonwood beside Anna's resting place swayed in the cold March wind. Its branches reached toward a sky bleeding pale pink and gold. He'd chosen this spot himself, close enough to see from the cabin porch, far enough that the children who'd come someday wouldn't play on sacred ground, except there'd be no children now. Samuel placed the simple wooden cross at the head of the grave. His hands, calloused from years of ranch work, trembled as they touched the carved letters. Anna Marie Hartwell, beloved wife, gone too soon. The neighbors had left an hour ago. Martha Doyle had squeezed his shoulder. Reverend Thomas had said words Samuel couldn't remember. The other ranchers had tipped their hats and drifted back toward their own lives. Their own wives waiting with warm coffee. Samuel had nothing waiting. He tried to pray. The words died in his throat like seeds in drought. 3 days ago, Anna had been laughing at something he'd said over breakfast. 2 days ago, the fever took hold. Yesterday, she stopped breathing. Today, he buried her. You deserved better than this, Anna, he whispered to the turned earth. Better than me. The wind answered with silence. He looked toward the cabin 200 yards away. Smoke should be rising from the chimney. Lamplight should glow in the window. Anna should be there, humming while she kneaded bread, telling him to wipe his boots before coming inside. The cabin sat dark and still. Samuel touched the cross one final time. His fingers lingered on the wood rough pine, hastily carved. He should have made something finer. Should have called the doctor sooner. Should have done 1,000 things differently. I'm sorry, he said. The cottonwood creaked. The frost-bent grass whispered. The sun climbed higher, indifferent to grief. Samuel turned and walked toward the empty house. His boots left tracks in the frost. Behind him, the fresh grave darkened as the sun's angle shifted. He didn't look back. Couldn't. A man's word is his bond, his father used to say. But some promises the earth takes first. The cabin door hung open. He'd left it that way when he'd carried her body out for the burial. Now it gaped like a mouth frozen mid-scream. Samuel stopped at the threshold, unable to cross. The wind pushed at his back. Morning light crept across the floorboards. Inside, her shawl still hung on the chair. The cabin smelled of her lavender soap and cedar. Samuel stood in the doorway for a long moment before his boots finally crossed the threshold. Dust motes drifted through the beam of sunlight slanting across the table. Anna's coffee cup sat where she'd left it 3 mornings ago, a dark ring staining the bottom. Her sewing basket rested by the chair, needle and thread waiting for hands that wouldn't return. The silence pressed against his ears like water. Samuel moved to the table and sat. His chair creaked. Hers remained empty across from him. He stared at that empty chair until the light shifted and the room grew dimmer. Hours passed. He didn't move. Memory surfaced unbidden, Anna standing at the stove, her hair catching lamplight as she laughed at something he'd said, the way she'd hum while working, how she'd touch his hand when she walked past, a casual gesture that meant everything. Her final words echoed, "Don't stop living, Samuel." But how does a man live in a tomb outside? Hoofbeats approached. A wagon rattled past on the road, heading toward town. Samuel heard it but didn't rise. Didn't care who passed or where they went. The hoofbeats faded, later minutes or hours. He couldn't say footsteps sounded on the porch. A soft knock. Then Martha Doyle's voice, gentle and knowing. "You ain't alone, Samuel. When you're ready." He heard her set something down, heard her footsteps retreat. The wagon creaked as she climbed aboard. More hoofbeats, growing distant. Samuel didn't move to see what she'd left, didn't open the door. The sun tracked across the floor. The beam of light narrowed, shifted, began to fade toward orange. He watched it move like watching seasons change, inevitable, unstoppable, meaningless. Through the window, he saw the light softening, Afternoon bleeding toward evening. In 3 hours, the sun would set on the first day without her. He'd survived one day. The thought brought no comfort. Out here. Grief's a long winter. Martha had said at the burial. But even the coldest snow melts come spring. Samuel looked at Anna's shawl draped over her chair, at her cup, at the half-finished quilt folded in the basket. Spring felt like a lie. He stood finally, legs stiff from sitting, moved to the door with the thought of bolting it. Shutting out the world, shutting out the light, living here in the dark with her ghost until his own time came. His hand reached for the bolt. Then he heard it, soft, hesitant. The unmistakable sound of a child's knuckles against wood. Knock, knock, knock. A pause. Knock, knock, knock. Samuel's hand froze on the bolt. He stood there, hand trembling on the undrawn bolt, staring at the door like it might explain itself. The knock came again. 3 gentle taps, small fist, uncertain rhythm. The sound a child makes when afraid of being heard but desperate to be answered. Memory surfaced sharp as glass last winter, a family stranded in a blizzard. Anna had heard their wagon before Samuel did. Rushed to open the door before he could protest about the cold. Her voice echoed across time. We always open the door. Samuel. Always. He'd opened it then. Let strangers warm themselves by his fire. Fed them from his stores. Sent them on their way come morning. But that was when Anna was alive to make the house feel like a home worth opening. Now it was a crypt. The knock again, more insistent, a child's patience wearing thin. Samuel's jaw clenched. He wanted to be left alone, wanted to sit in the dark and let the world spin on without him. But Anna's voice wouldn't quiet. We always open the door. He'd failed to open the door when it mattered most. 3 days ago, when Anna's fever spiked. He'd ridden for the doctor. Rode hard through the night. But Doc Preston had been 2 counties over, tending to a difficult birth. By the time Samuel returned alone, Anna was unconscious. She never woke. Some doors close no matter how hard you pound. The knocking stopped. Samuel heard a small, shuddering breath on the other side of the wood. Then one more tentative tap. His hand moved before his mind decided, drew back the bolt, pulled the door open. A little girl stood on his porch. She couldn't have been more than 7. Dusty brown dress, patched at the knees. Hair the color of wheat, tangled and windblown. Face streaked with tear tracks through trail dust. In her arms, she clutched a cloth doll, its button eyes hanging by threads. She looked up at him with eyes older than her years. "Mister," she whispered. "Please." Samuel's voice came out rough. "Where's your folks?" The girl's chin trembled. "Mama left me. Said she'd come back." Her small fingers tightened on the doll. "She won't." Samuel glanced past her. A wagon distant now, almost to the horizon, rolled through the sagebrush. Moving away. Not coming back. The girl followed his gaze and said nothing. The sun hung low now, bleeding orange across the Montana plain. Another hour, and it would set. Another day ending, another night coming. Sometimes the bravest thing is to stay when every bone tells you to run. Samuel looked at the child standing on his threshold, looked at the empty cabin behind him. 2 people with nowhere to go and no one waiting. He stepped aside. The girl hesitated, then entered. Her shoes too big, stuffed with cloth scuffed across the floorboards. She stopped in the middle of the room, taking in the cold fireplace, the silent table, the woman's shawl draped over an empty chair. "Your house feels sad," she said quietly. Samuel closed the door. The bolt stayed undrawn. "Yeah," he said. "It does." The wind crossed the threshold like a question neither of them could answer. Outside, the wagon disappeared into the sagebrush. Inside, 2 strangers stood in the dimming light, trying to remember how to be human. The girl didn't cry. That was worse. She sat by the cold hearth like she'd learned not to expect warmth. Samuel watched her from across the room, still standing near the door. She'd set the cloth doll carefully beside her, arranged its skirts like it mattered how it sat. Her hands folded in her lap, shoulders hunched, waiting for him to decide what happened next. He had no idea what happened next. The bundle Martha had left sat on the porch outside. Samuel retrieved it, bread wrapped in cloth, a jar of soup, some jerked beef, food for a man in mourning. Now it would feed a child he didn't know. He set it on the table. The girl's eyes tracked the movement, but she didn't rise. "You hungry?" Samuel asked. She nodded. Once, small and certain. He unwrapped the bread, broke off a piece, poured water from the pitcher into a tin cup, brought them to her. The girl took them with both hands, mumbled something that might have been thanks. She drank the water first, desperate gulps that told him she'd been thirsty for a while. Then she ate the bread slowly, making it last. Like she wasn't sure when the next meal would come. Samuel sat in his chair at the table, watched her. She couldn't weigh more than a sack of grain. Dress hung loose on her frame, cheeks hollow. When had she last eaten properly? "What's your name?" he asked. "Daisy," she said between bites. "Daisy Winslow." "I'm Samuel Hartwell." She looked at him with those two old eyes. "I know. Mama said this was the Hartwell place. Said you were a good man." Samuel felt something twist in his chest. "Your mama knew me." "No, sir. Just heard tell." Daisy finished the bread and set the cloth carefully aside. "Mama heard people in town say you were kind. That your wife was kind, too." Was past tense. News traveled fast in small places. "Where's your mama now?" Samuel asked, though he knew the answer. "Gone." Daisy's voice went flat. "Been traveling since Papa died. Winter was hard. Mama got thin. Then she got sick. Said she couldn't keep me no more." The girl looked down at her hands. "Left me here. Said somebody kind would find me." Samuel closed his eyes. Somebody kind. Anna would have been kind. Anna would have scooped this child up without hesitation, wrapped her in blankets, sung her to sleep. Anna was in the ground, and Samuel was hollow. He had nothing to give, nothing left. "Can we light the fire?" Daisy asked. "I'm cold." Samuel opened his eyes, stared at the fireplace. He hadn't lit it since Anna died, couldn't bear the sight of flames flickering in the hearth she'd tended. Fire meant life, warmth, home. This place was none of those things anymore. But the girl was shivering. A fire ain't just for warmth, his father used to say. It's for keeping the dark at bay inside and out. Samuel rose, knelt by the hearth, found kindling and logs still stacked where Anna had left them. His hands moved automatically, building the structure, striking flint, coaxing sparks to catch. The fire took. Flames curled around the wood. Heat began to spread. Daisy inched closer, held her hands out to the warmth. Her face, pinched and wary, a moment ago softened slightly. Then she smiled. Small and brief, but real. Samuel sat back on his heels, watched the fire burn, felt its heat on his face. Something in his chest cracked. Not broke, it was already broken, but shifted. Made room for something he didn't have a name for yet. Daisy's eyes drifted closed. The warmth, the food, the exhaustion, all of it caught up to her. She curled on her side by the hearth, the doll tucked under her chin. Samuel watched her for a long time. Then he stood, moved to Anna's chair, and lifted the shawl. The scent of lavender rose from the fabric. He carried it to the fireplace and laid it gently over the sleeping child. Daisy stirred but didn't wake, just pulled the shawl closer. Samuel returned to his chair, sat in the growing darkness. The fire crackled. The girl breathed soft and even. Outside, the sun finally set. Inside, for the first time in 3 days, there was light. She woke as the last rays of sun touched the windowsill, light turning her tangled hair copper gold. For a moment, one disorienting, cruel moment, Samuel forgot where he was. Daisy sat up slowly, Anna's shawl sliding from her shoulders. She blinked at the fire, at the darkening room, at Samuel sitting silent across the space between them. "I thought maybe I dreamed it," she said. "Thought maybe I'd wake up on the road again." "You're here," Samuel said. She nodded, pulled the shawl back around her shoulders. "This smells nice. Like flowers. Lavender. My wife grew it." Daisy looked at the empty chair beside him, at the cup still sitting on the table. Understanding crossed her young face. "She's gone. 3 days ago. I'm sorry." Daisy said it like she meant it, like she understood what sorry meant. They sat in silence. The fire popped. Wind whispered against the cabin walls. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, dark against the fading light. "My papa died last autumn," Daisy said finally. "Got thrown from a horse, broke his neck." She said it matter of fact, like reciting something she'd had to explain too many times. Mama tried to keep going, but winter came hard. Work dried up. We ran out of money. She looked down at the doll in her lap. She cried every night, thought I didn't hear. But I did. Samuel's throat tightened. "Then Mama got sick too," Daisy continued. "Cough that wouldn't quit." She got real thin, real tired. The girl's voice wavered. 3 days ago, we were on the road. She saw your cabin, said this was the place. Made me get down from the wagon. Told me to knock on your door. She just left you. Said she'd come back when she was better, when she had work, when she could feed me proper. Daisy's hands tightened on the doll. But she won't come back. I know she won't. She couldn't even look at me when she said it. Samuel closed his eyes. God took my wife and gave me a stranger's child. What am I supposed to do with that? Did your wife like songs? Daisy asked. The question pulled Samuel back. What songs? Singing. Mama used to sing to me, before Papa died. Before things got hard, Daisy's voice grew smaller. She said singing keeps the loneliness out. Your mama was right. Did your wife sing? Samuel nodded slowly. Yeah, she did. And what did she sing? Memory rose unbidden Anna at the stove, humming an old hymn. Amazing Grace, probably, or Come Thou Fount. Her voice soft and steady, filling the cabin with sound that felt like safety. Hymns mostly, Samuel said. Church songs. I know some of those. Daisy hummed a few notes, tentative, testing. Samuel recognized it. Come thou fount of every blessing. Anna's favorite, without thinking. He joined in. Just a few notes, his voice rough and unused. They both stopped, startled, looked at each other across the firelit room. Daisy's eyes glistened. Samuel's chest ached. She would have liked you, he said. Anna, she would have opened the door before you even knocked. I wish I could have met her. Me too. On Mercy arrives quiet, like first snow soft enough you don't hear it, heavy enough it changes everything. Samuel stood and moved to Anna's chair, picked up the shawl that had slipped from Daisy's shoulders. He wrapped it around the girl again, tucking it carefully. You can stay tonight, he said. Storm's coming. Can't send you back out in that. Daisy looked up at him. Just tonight. Samuel couldn't answer. Didn't know the answer. But when Daisy leaned against his knee, trusting, exhausted, grateful for even one night of warmth he didn't pull away. Outside. The first drops of rain began to fall. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside. 2 wounded souls sat by the fire, trying to remember what it felt like to not be alone. We always open the door, Samuel. Anna's voice echoed. Always. He'd opened it. That was enough for tonight. Tomorrow could figure itself out. The storm came hard after dark. Rain hammered the roof in sheets. Wind howled through gaps in the chinked logs. Thunder shook the cabin walls. Samuel sat in his chair, watching shadows twist on the wall. Across the room, Daisy slept by the fire, wrapped in Anna's shawl. The lamplight flickered between them, struggling against each gust of wind. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, the same thought circled, what if I fail her? Like I failed Anna. He'd failed to get the doctor in time, failed to see how sick Anna was getting, failed to save her when it mattered most. Now here was another soul depending on him, and he was still the same man who'd let his wife die. What if Daisy got sick? What if she needed something he couldn't provide? What if he grew attached? And then she left, or worse, stayed, and he proved himself unworthy of the trust in her eyes. The safer choice was clear. Take her to town in the morning. Let Martha Doyle foster her. Martha had raised 5 children of her own. She'd know what to do. She'd be better at this than Samuel could ever be. He'd go back to being alone, safe, unable to fail anyone else. The decision settled in his chest like stones. Thunder cracked close, violent. Daisy jerked awake with a gasp, sat up, eyes wide with fear, searching the darkness. It's just the storm, Samuel said. Daisy pulled the shawl tight. I don't like storms. They pass. She looked at him, really looked. Something in his face must have shown what he'd decided, because her expression changed. Went flat, resigned. Are you sending me away? She asked. Samuel's jaw tightened. He should say yes, should explain it clearly. Make her understand it wasn't her fault, that he just wasn't capable. Instead, he said nothing. The silence stretched. Daisy's eyes dropped to the floor. I understand, she said quietly. Nobody keeps me. It's okay. Daisy, I'm used to it. Her voice carried no anger, just acceptance. The worst kind. I know I'm too much trouble. Mama said so before she left. Samuel felt something crack behind his ribs. Your mama didn't say that. She didn't have to. Daisy lay back down, turning away from him, curled tight. I'll leave in the morning. Soon as the rain stops. Samuel opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say that she was wrong, that he wasn't sending her away, but he was? A coward can build a fence around his heart, his father used to say. But it don't keep the cold out, just the light. The lamp flickered. The storm raged. Between them, a vast distance that had nothing to do with the few feet separating his chair from the hearth. Daisy didn't cry. That was worse. She just lay there, small and still, waiting for morning, waiting to be abandoned again. Samuel sat in his chair, hating himself, hating the fear that made him choose loneliness over risk, hating that he could bury his wife in the morning and still find ways to fail by nightfall. The lamp burned low. He should refill it, should bank the fire, should do something. He did nothing. Just sat there while thunder shook the walls, and a child learned once again that she was disposable. Outside, rain turned the earth to mud. Inside, hope guttered like a dying flame. Tomorrow, he'd take her to town. Tomorrow, he'd be alone again. Tonight, he'd live with the look in her eyes when she'd said, I'm used to it. He didn't remember leaving the cabin, just found himself kneeling in the mud at Anna's grave, rain soaking through to bone. The storm raged. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the cottonwood and the rough wooden cross. Thunder followed like God clearing his throat to speak. Samuel pressed his palms into the mud. I don't know how to do this without you. The words tore out of him, raw, desperate. I'm failing already. She's been here one day, and I'm already sending her away. He choked on rain and grief. What's wrong with me? Anna had always known what to do. how to comfort, how to love without fear. She would have kept Daisy without hesitation, would have made the cabin feel like home again. But Anna was gone, and Samuel was exactly what he feared, a man too broken to be trusted with anything fragile. Lightning flashed again. In its brief light, he saw the inscription on the cross, "Beloved wife." Gone too soon. Memory surfaced, unbidden and sharp. 2 years ago. Anna sitting at the table, face pale, hands shaking. The bleeding had stopped, but the child was gone. Their child, never born, never held. She'd wept for days. He'd held her, helpless against a grief he couldn't fix. Then one morning she'd looked up from her coffee and said, "If we can't have our own, we'll love someone else's." He'd agreed. Said they'd foster, give a home to children who needed one, but they'd never done it. Always tomorrow. Always next year. Always when things were more settled. Now Anna was in the ground, and a child slept in their cabin, and Samuel was running. "If you sent her," he said to the grave, voice breaking. "I'm listening now." Thunder answered. Rain fell harder. Samuel looked back toward the cabin, through the storm. Through the darkness, a light. The lamp. Still burning. Daisy must have woke, must have lit it again. She was keeping the light on. Keeping it on for him? The land don't lie. Neither should a man. Truth is, I'm afraid. But fear ain't a reason to turn a child away. Samuel stood. Mud clung to his knees. Rain plastered his hair to his skull. He ran, boots slipping in mud, breath ragged, rain blinding. He crashed through the door, water streaming from his clothes. Daisy sat by the fire, eyes wide, terrified by the storm, terrified by his sudden appearance. Samuel dropped to his knees in front of her. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm sorry." Daisy stared at him, waiting for the blow, the rejection, the inevitable abandonment. "You can stay," Samuel said, "long as you need, long as you want." Her eyes filled. "You don't mean it." "I do." "You'll change your mind." Mama changed her mind. Everyone does. Samuel's throat closed. He reached out slowly. Let her see his hands coming. Gave her time to pull away. She didn't. He took her small hands in his. "I'm afraid," he said. Honest. Raw. "I'm afraid I'll fail you. But that's my fear to carry, not yours." "Forever," she whispered. "Can I stay forever?" Samuel's chest ached. "Let's start with tomorrow." Daisy searched his face, looking for the lie, the catch, the moment he'd take it back. She must have found something true, because she lunged forward, wrapped her arms around his neck, held on tight. Samuel froze, then slowly, carefully, he hugged her back. This small, brave child who'd been left too many times, who'd learned not to cry, who kept the lamp burning. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Outside. The storm raged. Inside. Something broke and healed at the same time. Thunder shook the walls. Lightning lit the world. Rain drummed the roof like applause. And Samuel Hartwell, widower, rancher. Broken man held a child who needed him and decided that, maybe, just maybe, tomorrow was worth showing up for. Morning came clear and cold. The storm had passed before dawn, leaving the world washed clean. Samuel woke to Daisy watching him from across the room, eyes wide with careful hope, like she still wasn't sure yesterday's promise would hold in daylight. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she whispered back. They looked at each other. Then Samuel stood. "You hungry?" Daisy nodded. He'd survived harder things than making breakfast. He found eggs in the cold box. Martha must have brought them with the other food. Bread left over. He built up the fire, set the skillet, cracked eggs into the pan. Daisy appeared at his elbow. "Can I help?" Samuel glanced down at her. "You know how to set a table." "Yes, sir." "Plates are in that cupboard. Forks in the drawer." She moved with practiced efficiency. Small hands setting plates just so. 2 forks. 2 cups. She paused at the 2 cups. Looked at Samuel like she was asking permission to exist. "Go on," he said. She set them both out. They ate together. The eggs were plain. The bread was getting stale. But Daisy ate like it was a feast. And Samuel felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Might have been hope. Hoofbeats approached outside. Samuel tensed. Daisy's eyes went wide. "It's all right," Samuel said. "Probably just neighbors checking in." He opened the door. Martha Doyle climbed down from her wagon. 2 other women with her, Sarah Bennett and Clara Hayes. The church women, the town's unofficial council of what's proper and what ain't. "Morning, Samuel," Martha said. Her eyes flicked past him to Daisy. "Heard you had company." News traveled fast. "This is Daisy," Samuel said. "Daisy Winslow." The 3 women exchanged glances. Samuel read the questions in their looks. Is it proper day after his wife's buried, taking in a strange child? "Her mama left her on my porch. Yesterday," Samuel said, voice steady. "She's staying." Sarah Bennett's eyebrows rose. "Staying, Samuel. You just buried. I know what I just did." He kept his tone respectful but firm. "And I know what I'm doing now." Clara Hayes stepped forward, looked at Daisy with a softer expression. "Child, how old are you?" "7, ma'am. And your mama's gone." Daisy nodded. Clara looked back at Samuel. "You sure about this, raising a girl on your own?" "No," Samuel said honestly. "I'm not sure about anything, but she needs a home. I've got one. That's enough to start with." Martha Doyle smiled then, slow and approving. Anna would have done the same. Samuel felt his throat tighten. "Yes, ma'am. She would have." "Well, then." Martha reached into her wagon and pulled out a wrapped bundle. This was Anna's sewing kit. For when the girl needs mending, she placed it in Daisy's hands. The girl looked down at it, then up at Martha. "Thank you," Daisy whispered. Sarah and Clara exchanged another glance. Then Sarah nodded. "We'll bring by some clothes. Girl can't wear the same dress forever. And we'll teach her," Clara added. "Reading, writing, numbers. Can't have a child growing up ignorant." Samuel felt something loosen in his chest. The community was accepting them, not questioning, not judging, just helping. Home ain't a place. It's the people you'd ride through hell to get back to. "I appreciate it," Samuel said. Martha squeezed his shoulder. "Grief's got its time. But so does living. You're doing right." "Samuel." "I'm doing what she would have wanted." "Then you're doing right." The women climbed back into the wagon. Samuel and Daisy stood on the porch, watching them roll away toward town. "They're nice," Daisy said. "Yeah, they are." Daisy looked up at him. "You really meant it. I can stay." Samuel looked down at her. This small person who'd knocked on his door at exactly the wrong moment, who'd kept the lamp burning, who'd given him a reason to come back from the grave. He put his hand on her shoulder. "You can stay." He leaned into him, trusting, grateful. Home. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the storm's chill. Samuel stood on his porch with a child beside him and felt, for the first time in days, something like peace. Not happiness, not yet, but the possibility of it, waiting just ahead, like spring after a long winter. 1 week passed, then another. Samuel learned the rhythms of living with a child. Wake before dawn. Make breakfast. Teach her chores. Answer endless questions. Tuck her in at night. It wasn't easy. Some mornings he woke and forgot, reached for Anna's warmth and found only empty sheets. Some evenings he sat at the table and the silence felt wrong even with Daisy chattering beside him. But slowly, the cabin stopped feeling like a tomb. Late afternoon, Samuel stood on the porch with coffee in hand. Spring was arriving properly now, green pushing through brown, birds nesting in the cottonwood, warmth in the air, in the garden plot. Daisy knelt in the soil, face serious with concentration, hands deep in earth. Anna's garden, overgrown since her death. Samuel hadn't been able to touch it. But this morning, Daisy had found Anna's seed packets in the cupboard, asked if they could plant them. Samuel had said yes. Now he watched her work, carefully pressing seeds into the ground, patting soil over them, moving to the next spot with the methodical focus of someone who understood that growing things required patience. She'd placed the garden near Anna's grave. Not on purpose, she'd just started at the edge and worked her way along. But the effect was the same, including Anna, not erasing her. Samuel set down his coffee and walked over, knelt beside Daisy in the dirt. "You're doing good," he said. "Mama taught me, before Papa died. We had a garden." Daisy patted another seed into place. She said plants are hope. You put a seed in the ground and trust tomorrow will come. Your mama was smart. She tried. Daisy's voice went soft. She tried real hard. I know she did. Samuel handed her another seed packet. I know she did too. They worked in silence for a while, the sun warm on their backs, soil rich and dark, the grave a quiet presence beside them. Daisy paused, looking at the wooden cross. Do you still miss her every day? Does it hurt less? Samuel considered. No, it just hurts different. Make room for other things too. Daisy looked at him. Like me? Yeah, like you. She smiled, small but real. Then she reached into the seed packet, pulled out a handful, and held them toward Anna's grave. Should we plant some for her? Samuel's throat closed. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Together, they planted wildflower seeds at the base of the cross. Daisy patted the soil gently. Samuel added one more seed himself. She'd like you, he said. Anna, she'd like you a lot. I wish I could have met her. Me too. They finished the planting, carried water from the well, soaked the ground, watched dark soil turn darker. Will they grow? Daisy asked. If we take care of them, I'll help. I know you will. The sun began its descent toward the horizon. Samuel looked at the cabin behind them, door open, lamp visible in the window, smoke curling from the chimney. Home. Not the same home it had been. Anna's absence would always be felt. But maybe that was all right. Maybe home could hold both grief and joy, both past and future. Every cabin built is a heart rebuilt. Every seed planted is a promise kept. Come on, Samuel said, standing and brushing dirt from his knees. Let's get cleaned up for supper. Daisy jumped up, grabbed his hand. They walked back toward the cabin together, leaving fresh-turned earth and newly planted seeds behind them. Inside, Samuel lit the lamp, stoked the fire, set out plates. Daisy washed her hands at the basin, humming softly, one of Anna's hymns. The sound filled the cabin with something that felt like light. Samuel watched her. This child who'd knocked on his door at sunset, who'd kept the lamp burning, who'd given him a reason to keep waking up. The lamp burned steady as the sun dipped low. Outside, roots taking hold in soil that had known both death and life. Inside, a home. Not perfect, not unmarked by sorrow, but alive. Samuel didn't smile, not yet. Some things took time, but he breathed deep, and the air tasted like tomorrow. In the morning. He'd teach Daisy to ride. In the morning. They'd check the garden for sprouts. In the morning. They'd begin again. And that, he thought, was enough. More than enough. It was everything.